It is another episode of the Juice on the Cuse podcast. Wes Cheng alongside Jim Stechschulte. Thanks so much for joining us on this Tuesday, March 8, 2025. So much to talk about today. We begin today's show with the football team. Syracuse held their annual pro day on Monday, and we got to see guys like Kyle McCord, Oronde Gadsden II, Lequint and Marlo Wax one more time on campus. Jim, what'd you take away from Monday?
Well, I thought actually the nicest part of pro day was one player who you didn't mention, and that was Marlo Wax, whose season was cut extremely short in the middle, we'll say, by injury. But he was able to come back. But there was lots of positive reviews and buzz around him. He was a player who I imagine if he had stayed healthy and continued playing it the way he did at the start of the season, including winning ACC Defensive Player of the Week honors in about half a game early in the season, I think he would have played well enough over the course of the year to get invited to the NFL Combine. So I thought it was great that Marlo got to come out and show what he can do and hopefully breathe some life into some draft prospects or even draw some NFL eyes as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, I mean, he also had a great 40-yard run time. So I'm really hoping that he can kind of work himself into that NFL draft conversation, at least as an undrafted free agent. And a couple things also caught my eye, Jim. Speaking with Justin Barron after, he said that some of the teams he's spoken to said that he could project as an every down linebacker. That was definitely interesting to hear because the initial reports on him was that he projected as a nickel or dime linebacker. So obviously would love to see Barron on the field as much as possible. I also enjoyed hearing Kyle McCord speak after. You know, he was asked a question about what NFL teams could take away from his college career, and he responds that he's won everywhere he went. And that's absolutely true, whether that was at St. Joseph's in high school, at Ohio State, or at Syracuse. And this is someone who had a very high win percentage in the games that he's played in. And finally, Lequint showing that versatility. You know that he's a capable running back. You know that he's more than willing to be a blocker in the backfield against a defensive back or a linebacker. And also Syracuse highlighting yesterday, he's an outstanding receiver lining up with Kyle McCord on multiple reps. So just great to see that many Syracuse players that have draft potential, because there were a couple lean years, 5 and 10 years ago in the Scott Schaefer and the Dino Babers era too.
Yeah, we kind of give some of we always try to focus on the current and the new guys as opposed to the old guys, because no one is really running out of their way to give Dino Babers credit for bringing in a guy like Lequint or a guy like Oronde Gadsden II. But there they are going to the NFL Combine, having great pro days. Allen, I think, doing the smart thing by working out as a pass receiver in familiar confines with someone familiar throwing in the ball. And, it's the same thing with McCord throwing to him. And McCord throwing to the other guys who he played with last year. That timing is still there or easily tapped into, making everybody look better. I also enjoyed what McCord said when he was asked about what he did last year. He said, "Look at the tape," and there was a lot of tape of him throwing the ball, as we know, and a lot of it looks pretty good. He's obviously not the greatest athlete in the world, but I think he fits as in an NFL offense, where the quarterback is not leaned on to be a star. It's not someone who has to make everything go. Someone who's a part of a greater offensive unit, with a solid run game and, diverse pass receivers. Getting back to Barron, who you talked about before, I do think the fact that the teams are looking at him as an all-down running back, all-down linebacker, is a big surprise. Wax's injury actually enabled him to play a lot more linebacker. He got shifted there because Syracuse had more than enough defensive backs that it was deemed a better decision for the team as a whole that he move up there and play undersized. Not that he's that undersized. He was always a really big safety, even back when they, essentially playing almost a third linebacker role back when they played a 4-2-5. It's great to hear that he's got this option though, and that teams are looking at him as being a potential every down player. He's a guy who played through pain. I remember him running around with a cast on his arm and still hitting guys and being involved in stopping the run as well as making plays in the pass game. It's actually an exciting NFL draft for Syracuse fans, as you said, in comparison to some of the other more lean years.
Yeah, and I think the person that I'm going to enjoy seeing the most drafted is Kyle McCord, because in the last 25 years, there's been one Syracuse quarterback taken in the 4th round, and that was Ryan Nassib by the Giants. That's it. That's the list. So to see another Syracuse quarterback get drafted, that's actually a really big deal for the program, I think, in the direction it's headed in. And Jim, we move on. The Syracuse basketball season ended with a loss to SMU in the ACC tournament. The 2025-26 season is officially underway. The portal opens on March 24. You had an article out shortly after the final buzzer about what Syracuse needs to do in the portal. Talk to us about that.
Well, I think the big thing I see is that obviously this program needs an injection of talent. And I don't just mean like established players. I mean they need to improve the overall talent level in this team. This team this last year was woefully unathletic in comparison to many other Syracuse teams. We're used to seeing guys who fit that profile of a Hakeem Warwick or even like a Dante Green, these long, wiry athletes. Instead, at the end of Eddie Lampkin's a very good player, but he was just kind of an earthbound center. Jair Davis ended up being a starter after Donnie Freeman went out, and he's an undersized 4, banging it out 25, 28 minutes a game. Lucas Taylor, great effort, not a great athlete. Jaquan Carlos, smaller in stature and not a great athlete either. And I mean, Freeman's the only guy on this roster who you look at as an athlete and just go, yeah, that's what we need here.
And you were missing him for half the season.
Exactly. And, the guys played hard and full credit for that and didn't give up and all that sort of thing. But at the same time, this team needs to get a lot more athletic.
Yeah, Jim, obviously agreed with everything you wrote in that article. I think the number one thing Syracuse needs in the offseason is that athletic rim protecting center with some offensive pop. And we spoke about this all throughout the basketball season, right? The defense is really what stung Syracuse in all their close losses.
Yep.
And I think that in part is due to Eddie Lampkin. I think earthbound center is a very nice way of putting it. I mean, he's just not a guy that could protect the rim. And you brought up a stat in the preseason that really foreshadowed what was going to happen. He only had 5 blocks in the entire 2023-24 season for Colorado. He did triple that output with 16 on the year with Syracuse, but obviously anyone playing at Syracuse for the center position needs to average at least 1 a game to keep players honest when they drive to the rim. I thought, to your point, they need to get into the portal, find an athletic point guard who can get into the paint at will, has the size and toughness to be a good perimeter defender. We both like Jaquan Carlos as a player, but I think once he stepped up to the ACC, he was a little outmatched in terms of his size and athleticism at both ends of the floor. So that position is in need of a significant upgrade. So those are the 2 priority positions you mentioned in your article, Jim. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And I also mentioned the other 2 spots I think that they really need to do is they need to bring in 2 3-and-D wings who are also athletic. I've also mentioned in the article that I think there's a couple players who should be departing through the portal. You can read the piece for that. There's no point getting into it because I'm obviously more interested in talking about guys who will essentially replace them in the rotation. And frankly, one of these 3-and-D wings should be at least a threat to play in the starting lineup. This team needs not just the 3-point shooting, but they need defensive mindset and people who play well and challenge and lift up their teammates. We both mentioned how Lampkin's not a great shot blocker, and Freeman's injury also hurt the interior defense there because he's kind of that, tall, lanky, athletic guy who we're looking at as like, this is the kind of player who should be roaming the front line. Sadiq White Jr., who's a commit coming in as a freshman. He also fits that, but beyond those 2 guys, it still isn't helping a whole lot. But I think as long as as a couple wings come in who can play, and at least one of them needs to be able to threaten for a starting spot as a wing, because they need to instill defensive intensity and purpose on the floor. And also, if you have guys who defend like that in practice every day, it's, as I wrote in my piece, it's going to be like pouring gasoline on the offensive development of younger players because they're going to be facing that degree of competition in practice 30 minutes a day in scrimmage sessions. And guys like Kyan Anthony and Elijah Moore, they need to be challenged by players like that on a daily basis.
So we're going to take a quick break. Carl Jones will join us when we return. This is the Juice on the Cuse podcast.
This is the Bet Online read. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, Bet Online continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, Bet Online has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here.
Back on the Juice on the Cuse podcast, Wes Cheng here with you. It's our great pleasure, as always, to be welcoming on former Syracuse defensive back and WIVB's Carl Jones. Carl, appreciate the time as always. How are you today?
I'm all good, man. I'm grateful to be back. We always, when we chop it up, it's always a great conversation. So once again, just grateful you thought of me and be back talking again.
Oh, yeah. And Carl, before we get started, we last had you on the program, speaking of chopping it up, in August, and you predicted that Syracuse was going to win 9 games in 2024. I don't know if you remember that, with a chance for a 10th win in a bowl game. So let's just have you take a bow before we say anything else. Congratulations.
No, I want to give all that credit to Fran Brown and the fabulous stuff that he has instilled in that culture, the great players that he's brought over. I've had the pleasure to meet him a few times since then, and he's an awesome dude that I wish I had another year eligibility, because I will run through a wall for that man. He's that type of motivator.
That's awesome to hear. So, Carl, I want to get you started on this one. Obviously, you played at Syracuse from 2016 to 2019. You cover the Buffalo Bills for your work at WIVB. You play with Eric Dungy. You watch a guy, I think, by the name of Josh Allen play. I guess he's okay at the quarterback position. When you watch Kyle McCord play and you see what he's been able to do at the NFL Combine and Syracuse's Pro Day on Monday, what do you see as his NFL future?
First off, his improvement is night and day compared to where it was 2 years ago. I'm a big Ohio State fan. I'm from Ohio State country in Cleveland, Ohio. So I was able to watch McCord, I guess, his junior season, if that's how they want to label it. And he was good. Obviously, I think they only had one loss that year. Of course, it was the Michigan game. So everyone's going to highlight that one. But I thought he was good. And for whatever reason, they went separate ways in the offseason, and then he went to another level this past year for the Orange. And you can say whether it's the level of competition, blase, he still made the throws. And the throws don't matter who's on the other side of the ball. And I think that he's a guy who's extremely accurate. I think he's tough in the pocket as well. He's not the most athletic person in the world, but he finds a way to slip out of tackles and finds a way to just create enough to make things shake. If I had to guess on a landing spot for him in next month's draft, there's a top 3, the consistent top 3 with Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and Jackson Dart. After that, it's a mosh pit. You'll have some people who think Jalen Milroe can be the next Jalen Hurts. You'll have some people who say Tyler Shough from Louisville is this older prospect that they don't mind taking in the second round. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle McCord is in that next 4th to 5th quarterback taken off the board, just based off of his trajectory and how much he's grown. But also, accuracy matters. And I know covering Josh Allen, I know he's kind of bucked a lot of the trends on how you can't get more accurate the older you get. But not everyone's Josh Allen, okay? And I think Kyle McCord brings a few traits where you can't teach. He's a leader. The guys rallied around him. He was only on campus, 8 months before the first game, and they rallied around him no matter. I mean, listen, considering how things ended at Ohio State, the Syracuse guys could have been like, we don't know if we really trust you. It didn't matter. He did enough to earn their confidence, and I think that speaks a lot about how he's put together as a young man and some of his NFL futures going forward.
So, Carl, I wanted to talk about Oronde Gadsden II. It certainly helps when your father played for the NFL's Miami Dolphins. I've read the reports. Some maybe projected more as a big slot receiver as opposed to a pass-catching tight end. Where do you see him ultimately lining up in the NFL?
I think that's probably going to be his role. Tight end is weird, and that position on the field is so weird because you have your elite core guys, your George Kittles, your prime Travis Kelce's. Brock Bowers is weird because, is he a tight end? Sure, but he's just a football player. The Ravens line him up everywhere. I saw one time he's lined up against Patrick Surtain, so they just put him anywhere. But after that, the tight end position is kind of however you want to use them. I know Mike Gesicki, who just re-signed for the Cincinnati Bengals on a 3-year deal last week, I believe. He doesn't really play a traditional tight end spot. He lines up at tight end half of the game. So I think he's probably going to be a day 3 guy just because some teams are going to be concerned on, he's not a blocker and all that good jazz. I still like his NFL prospects, though. Out of everyone on the list, I would say he's probably next behind Kyle McCord, just based off the fact you can't teach 6'5". He's 243, and he can only put more weight on. He has really good ball skills that were evident early on in his career. He probably could have left last year if he didn't suffer the foot injury, and still could have left if he wanted to. But he bounced back from the nasty injury. He still showed that he was an explosive player. And any tight end who can be the focal point of a passing offense, no matter the level, shows a level of consistency and trust with everyone involved. So I like OG a lot. He's been fun to watch throughout his career with the Orange. And I think that he'll be in that tight end, big slot, quasi role, depending on if he gets a good offensive coordinator that doesn't ask him to put his hand in the dirt 30 times a game, because that wouldn't be his strong suit. And that would be doing him a disservice and the team a disservice. But if you get a good enough OC who knows his strengths and can cater around what he does well, I think he can carve out a nice role in the league.
So let's stay on the offensive side of the ball. Lequint Allen really showing off his versatility at Syracuse's pro day, catching a lot of passes from Kyle McCord in reps. So it seems like he can carve out a role in the NFL, not just as a running back and a pass catching running back, but also on special teams. So what's his NFL potential in your mind?
First off, forget what position he plays. He's going to always have a chance because how tough he is. I mean, as an alum, when you watch players, obviously the guys with the star-studded potential are going to be the ones you gravitate to first. But then those dudes who are tough, and I'm not talking about how you usually spell it. I'm talking about Tuff, that type of tough. Those are the guys that you're super proud of, and I think that's Lequint Allen to a T. I mean, what the things that he dealt with off the field in the university and his personal life are one thing. Set that aside. When you look at him as a player and how hard he runs, anytime a running back is good in pass protection, you know that he's a different type of cat. You know why? Because I am standing still, and a linebacker who is 230 pounds plus has a full head of steam, and I just have to sit here and just hope he doesn't run me over. And he does that at a high level. That speaks the type of player that he is and the type of fortitude that he brings to the field. In terms of his skills, I think he is one of, if not the best receiving backs in the class. He's had over 100 catches in the past 2 years. He's excelled in that role. You know, a lot of running backs, when they come into the league, they're like, hey, you can play in this role. We don't know if we like you there. He may not be a 3-down back in terms of, oh, we trust him on first and second down. He may have to carve out and earn that. But day one, no doubt about it, he can be your third down guy. So those type of guys usually don't get drafted high, and it doesn't help that this class is loaded for running backs. So don't know exactly what round per se, but he'll have a role just because tough guys always play in the National Football League. You alluded to it earlier. He'll play on special teams, and anytime a quarterback can trust him to just, hey, if that nickel's blitzing off the edge or this linebacker's coming through the A-gap, Lequint Allen is going to stick his face in the fan and make sure that quarterback doesn't get his jersey dirty. That says a lot about him.
So, Carl, we've been talking too much about offense. Let's go to your side of the ball, defense. Justin Barron really showing his versatility in 2024, moving from safety to linebacker. He actually said yesterday that he's being told by scouts he's got every down potential as opposed to just maybe appearing in a nickel or dime package. Do you see him having that kind of upside?
I mean, when you look at where he played at SU, for sure. I mean, he got there the year I left campus, because I was there for my 5th year in 2020. And obviously under Nick Monroe, he started as a safety and all the different safety spots, free safety, rover, wherever they wanted to put him. I know Tony White used him in a different spot when he got there as the defensive coordinator as well. And then the past year, he was at linebacker. Those guys, that's two things. One, you clearly have the mental fortitude to look at the game from different places. The game is much different at nickel than it is linebacker compared to safety. So clearly he has the mental acumen to handle all of those different responsibilities. And then also I think his skill set, he's pretty athletic, obviously, to play a safety and backer. Those are two different types of physical capabilities that you need. Is he going to be an every down backer where you want him thumping in the box every play? I don't know. I don't think that's his skill set per se, but he has good size. I believe he's 6'4", been around the 225 range during this draft process, and obviously teams can always bulk him up because it's not like he's a natural 225. He hasn't been there a while, so he can obviously put more on if a team needs him to do so. But I do see the potential of a team trying him in a bunch of different places. It is always a little weary with the tweener guys on defense, just because you get the defensive coordinator who isn't creative, then that's when you get screwed a little bit. But I see where things can work out for him. I mean, he bounced around a bunch of spots at SU. Those are smart players. Like tough players last in the NFL, smart players also get a good chance to succeed as well.
So, Carl, we'll get you out of here on this one. I'm personally having a hard time placing Jackson Meeks with the people I've spoken with. I've seen his name anywhere from a second-day guy in the draft to a potential priority undrafted free agent. What do you see with Meeks?
Yeah, he's a unique one. Obviously, he's only been at SU 1 year. He was one of Fran Brown's guys when he came over from Georgia. First thing that pops off for him is fast. He is super fast. He flies off the tape. Actually, on a funny note, my first exposure to Jackson Meeks was the college video game that came out in July. When that came out, I'm just throwing nothing but bombs to the number 7 because I'm like, yo, this kid is fast. I can't wait to watch him on Saturdays. And he was doing similar things when he in the real world, not the video game as well. Some of the positive things that came out for him, really good body control. He had a lot of catches in tight areas and traffic. So I can see some of the allure with, taking him on day 2. Receiver tend to be a traits position, though, especially early on in the draft, I would say. Like those guys who go in the top 100 picks, these teams are like, oh, we want to mold them. Like we're so good, like in our coaching styles and what we can bring to the table, that we can just mold them into what we want them to be. Is that always accurate? No. Like coaches, like you aren't God. Like you're going to be wrong sometimes. You just can't mold players into what you want them to be. So I can see some of the allure based off of his speed, but I do think the concerns with only one big year of production that's coming this past year are valid. There's like a statistic out there. I don't have it in front of me, but I remember every draft cycle, especially covering the Bills with all the receivers they need every year, that receivers who tend to pop late don't have the best trajectory going forward.
Interesting.
And listen, that isn't case, but that's also case by case. I know I said tend to, but there are some receivers who just were banged up their first 3 years of college. There are some receivers who played on loaded receiver rooms. I know for Jackson Meeks, you were at Georgia. Yeah, they had some NFL guys down there. Some guy by the name of Ladd McConkey. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He was pretty good last year.
Pretty good. He's okay.
He was okay last year for the Los Angeles Chargers. I say all that to say he's the one that I've also had the toughest to peg, just based off of the fact that really good production last year. He brings some traits that are NFL quality, but the 1 year of production, he's not a freak on tape. Those are some things that I can see NFL teams being a little bit hesitant on. But I think if I were to order them in terms of their NFL prospects, you gave them to me in terms of the order. Kyle McCord, OG, Lequint, who's just my favorite. I just love watching Lequint play. I'm so mad that he's gone. I'm not even – listen, those who know me, I love DB play. I watch them all the time. But anytime SU had the rock – and I know they threw the ball a lot this year because you had an NFL guy like McCord. But I'm watching Lequint back there like the UNLV game.
Oh, that last play when he ran over the linebacker to get into the end zone after he'd been stopped 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Oof.
Listen, if you want – and then his touchdown to send it to overtime.
Yeah.
Those 2 plays. NFL teams, just watch those 2 plays. And you tell me that you can't at least bring him to camp in August. You tell me that doesn't deserve an NFL look. I'm proud of the guys. I'm happy that this is a year that we're sending more guys into the league as opposed to we have some lean years of late. But we're really excited for the guys.
Well, we're always excited to have you on, Carl. Thanks as always again, former Syracuse defensive back and WIVB's Carl Jones. Carl, we appreciate it. Speak with you soon.
Thank you, man. You have a good one.
All right, take care. Back on the Juice on the Cuse podcast, Wes Cheng alongside Jim Stechschulte. Jim, we're running out of show. You got a closing thought for us?
Actually, I do. Getting back to football as things go in the spring, but not the pro day variety. There was a little bit of buzz around the Syracuse Orange program as Fran Brown announced he was willing to take up Deion Sanders on his offer of being a spring football game opponent. I don't know if the NCAA allows this. I don't know if the school wants to do it. I don't know anything about it, but I think it's great for a very simple reason. It's building out the Syracuse Orange football program. It's a giant spotlight because it's an ESPN2 game, et cetera, exposure, get these guys on TV, all that stuff. It does come with one potential drawback that I think the fan base needs to be prepared for if it does happen. If you follow college sports on a national level, reading articles, listen to podcasts, whatever it is, there's a phrase that's following Syracuse head coach Fran Brown just about everywhere he gets mentioned on this national level. You're not going to like this phrase either. It's, quote, future SEC coach, end quote, Fran Brown. It's already happening. You should probably get used to it. I know there are people out there who still make fun of Doug Marrone using the, quote, dream job, end quote, to describe coming to Syracuse. I know Fran Brown has said he wants to just do the one job and eventually retire from Syracuse. That's all great. Just keep in the back of your mind that if things go as well as you want them to here at Syracuse, Fran Brown probably won't be doing it probably won't be the one making it happen for much longer than those things you want to happen are actually happening.
The answer to all your questions is money, Jim, and there's
Mhm.
a disconnect between the amount of money Syracuse can offer a coach and then an SEC program. So
Yep.
I always say success is good for Syracuse, but also means that they're going to need to find someone else that can have success.
Mhm.
Syracuse is not a destination program. I think people need to understand that, and that's okay. We just watched Syracuse have a 10-win season and enjoy that while it's here, and enjoy whatever time we have with Fran Brown for as long as it lasts.
Agreed wholeheartedly.
Jim, wanted to close the show on former Syracuse center Jesse Edwards. The Dutchman signed a 2-way contract with the Minnesota Timberwolves after going undrafted last year, and earlier this March got his first run as an NBA player after getting called up from the G League. He played 2 minutes against the Phoenix Suns on March 2nd, followed up by another 3 minutes against Philadelphia Sixers on March 4th. So with Edwards logging NBA minutes, this actually was a significant milestone for Jim Boeheim, because his final roster in the 2022-23 season was the only roster in his long Syracuse tenure that didn't feature an NBA player. Well, that's now no longer true, and Jim Boeheim can proudly say that in each of his 47 seasons, he had at least one NBA caliber player on his roster. That's actually pretty impressive.
Congratulations to Jesse Edwards on this accomplishment. I think it's a tremendous accomplishment. Great for him. I always fondly think back to how important he actually played a role as a freshman late in that season when Syracuse was making a Sweet 16 run. He provided a few minutes off the bench late in the season in several games, just as a defensive threat, shot blocker. He let him just kind of run wild and gave him the green light to go ahead and foul some guys, but just defend that goal with everything he has. Both he and Robert Braswell were actually both key players in helping drive the team to that Sweet 16 berth, because they helped provide a defensive backbone and different look for that Orange team. So congratulations again to Jesse Edwards on his accomplishment of making the NBA.
Oh boy, the Sweet 16 sounds like it was forever ago. Anyway, that's it for us. For Jim Stechschulte, this is Wes Cheng. You've been listening to the Juice on the Cuse podcast presented by Believe in Rivals, and we will see you next time.